I'm Lee C. Camp, and this is No Small Endeavor, exploring what it means to live a good life.
Humans are a story. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Does a large language model have that kind of story? Is our finiteness and our imperfection a part of what we embrace in a future where our economic productivity is not the special thing at all?
That's social commentator Baratunde Thurston discussing AI's potential to challenge our ideas of our work and worth, but also our conception of ourselves.
What is it going to mean for our human experience and how we connect to life writ large? Life that came before, life that will come after, and life that's beyond human.
All coming right up.
Hey friend, if you didn't know, I started a newsletter a while back that comes out every 2 weeks. I've been delighted to hear from so many of you about positive response to the newsletter. We call it the No Small Endeavor Notebook, where I riff on themes and topics related to our podcast, giving you additional material for thinking and doing in your own quest to make sense of what it might mean to live a good life. Join us by going now to nosmallendeavor.com and sign up there. Again, go to nosmallendeavor.com to sign up now for our free No Small Endeavor Notebook newsletter. You know, it can be hard sometimes to quiet your mind at night with all that to-do list for tomorrow running through your mind, but bowl and branch sheets can help you truly unwind with a softness so extraordinary that your whole body just relaxes into sleep. Bowl and Branch's signature sheets are made free from toxins with the finest 100% organic cotton. They feel buttery soft just right out of the package, and they come with a 30-night worry-free guarantee. They're ethically crafted by expert artisans who earn fair wages, and if you're looking for a new set of sheets, then go check out Bowl and Branch. You can tell the quality immediately, and that sweet color selection, it made me happy to put our new Bowl and Branch sheets on our bed. Feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep can make with Bowl and Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bowlandbranch.com/NSE. That's Bowl and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/NSE to save 15% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins, just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag, the one you stole from your ex, or your overpriced half-a-studio apartment, or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar, triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
I'm Lee C. Camp. This is No Small Endeavor, exploring what it means to live a good life. As an undergrad computer science major back in, after punch cards, but prior to PCs, I could never have imagined the AI landscape of today. None of my experience with coding could have prepared me for the power that my grandchildren will have at their fingertips. We already use AI in our business, in our personal lives, and social media. It's awash even with questions to ask LLM models in lieu of therapy. And in the midst of already being awash with such technologies, I'm regularly asking the question, what does it mean to be human in such a world? Or what does it mean to have a community, to love, to make a contribution in such a world? And I find myself avoiding commentators with overly simplistic, reductionistic answers to those questions. And today's guest is not one of those. Baratunde Thurston is a comedian, a satirist, a social commentator, and an Emmy-nominated host who loves to tell stories of interdependence with the natural world around us, with one another, with technology. His newest project is Life with Machines, a YouTube podcast exploring the human side of the AI revolution, which we'll be discussing today. Baratunde is also a host and executive producer of the PBS series America Outdoors, creator and host of the How to Citizen podcast, and a founding partner at Puck. His comedic memoir, How to Be Black, is a New York Times bestseller. So today, our conversation with Baratunde Thurston. Welcome, Baratunde.
Lee Camp, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very pleased to have you with us. So, you've worn a lot of hats, a lot of fascinating hats. Comedian, technologist, civic organizer, outdoor enthusiast. So I'm wondering about a through line through all of those sorts of roles and endeavors. One that I would speculate is that it's a sort of through line of asking a question about what does it mean to live well together with others. But how would you describe the through line?
That's really good. That's really good. I might need to update my official bio. The width has been expanding in terms of who I am most curious about us being able to live with. I've described it as interdependence as the core theme, and how do we live in right relationship with our planet, with each other, and with these rising machines. I think that there's an additional through line, which is that of telling stories. I don't really build movements. I don't lead tens of thousands of people to the gates myself. I definitely amplify that work, but the narrative sphere is my primary realm. And the story we tell ourselves about ourselves, I think, shapes a lot of who and how we are. So I'm really invested in story.
We're going to have a good conversation then. Yeah. So what about satire? That's been a huge piece of your life as well, writing for The Onion for a while, and then your How to Be Black and the various work you've done in that regard. So where did satire come from for you as a fundamental genre or lens to look at the world?
I was a serious kid, Lee. I was interested in all these big questions. My mom was a very political and spiritual person, and I carried myself a little more comfortably with adults than my youthful peers. And comedy allowed me to express and safely feel frustration at injustice. So I stumbled into it initially through Black comedians that my mom was watching. Richard Pryor, Whoopi Goldberg were a lot of the early influences, but also Garrison Keillor and his whole Wobegon thing. Then the internet gave me more latitude to start exploring my own tastes. I started curating lists of comedy and jokes that I found online and sharing it with friends in high school. This is the early 1990s. Then in college, I found my own voice through a satirical email newsletter. This is 1996 to 1999. I got most serious in 2001, and I took a class at the Boston Center for Adult Education, just like a continuing education class taught by a local comedian named Steve Kalishman. Long may we remember his name. He really helped open a door, and that brought me into the world of stand-up. I was also traveling to New York City every week from Boston to do a satirical comedy writing class with educators from The Onion and The Daily Show and Saturday Night Live. They would grade our work and tell us about their career paths. I moved to Chicago for a summer to do improv. So I was just in it. And I restarted my newsletter to talk about Bush 1 and what was happening with civil rights or not, to level truths without facts. That is in part the role of satire. Communicate something that's true that maybe not is factual. And then I found an opportunity because friends knew what I was looking for, because I was attuned enough and lucky to work for The Onion. And that was like going to advanced study every day in the trenches with some of the most talented, focused, clear thinking, clear communicating satirists. And I learned a lot, and I kind of learned by osmosis. And so I would leave The Onion and start a technology company premised on tech satire. Even what we're doing now with Life with Machines, there's more coming in terms of how do we not just tell a story that people passively experience, but create a world that they can inhabit and interact with, create immersive experiences. Tech allows you to do that. XR, AR, VR, AI, it's all getting much more high touch. And satire it's also just one of the only ways through the absurdity of our reality now.
Talk to us a little bit more then about what drove you in the midst of all that to start this new podcast, Life with Machines. and what you see as your driving agenda there.
What drove me to make Life with Machines, I think there's probably 3 parts to that. There's my origin with my mom, who was a coder and a technologist, and so much tech infusion into my upbringing through Harvard, through jobs at The Onion, Daily Show, et cetera. It was all tech-related digital jobs. But along the way, I have had a deep commitment to how we self-govern and relate to each other through this thing called democracy, which I deeply believe is something we do, not something we have. It's one of my associates in this work, John Alexander, puts it so succinctly that way, as me and my wife Elizabeth have put it, citizen as a verb, how to citizen. And years of storytelling and experience and advocacy there gave me a faith in people and a faith in us that our political system is totally unworthy of, but the people always are. So that was helpful. That was a 2020 formal initiation of that and still in it.
A quick note here from me. Baratunde here is talking about his podcast and website, How to Citizen, which launched in 2020 as one means of expanding the possibilities of civic engagement. The website provides resources and exemplars that might fuel attempts to make significant contributions to the communities of which we are a part.
And then the third element is my foray into the natural world and reconnecting and regrounding with Earth. And I got to do 2 seasons of this beautiful experiential show for PBS called America Outdoors, where I'm literally touching grass. I'm on rivers and mountaintops with laborers and extreme athletes and indigenous people and so many different folks who feel at home with that connection to nature. So in the midst of that journey, as I'm like deepening my own practice of democracy with humans and with planet, ChatGPT drops. And it's exciting, it's overwhelming, it's confusing, it's reminiscent of the mobile moment and the social media moment and the cloud moment times each other. And it is threatening or bolstering my own theory of everything in terms of how we co-create our reality and our future. Will AI help us in our connection to Earth? Or will it further sever us from this planet? Will it create collective agency and not just individual agency? You know, making little armies of one and societies of one, which I think our whole political economic system has really driven toward. So that's empowering. It's also fragmenting and isolating. So how do we look at this moment and what is it going to mean for our human experience and how we connect to life writ large, life that came before, life that will come after, and life that's beyond human.
I think it's your show trailer. You asked the question, will we be AI's parents or its pets? But if we turn that around and ask, what do you think AI teaches us about ourselves? What are you seeing or speculating that AI teaches us about what it means to be human?
We are less and more than we think. We are less special than we think in that AI is able to produce things. People using AI are able to produce things that previously only people in collaboration actively with other people consciously could produce. Works of art, works of bad art, works of business strategy or seeming business strategy. It's the irony that the job displacement that machines were supposed to wreak on society is being visited upon the knowledge worker, the white collar worker, the upper middle class manager, much more than the physical laborer at this moment, and the coder in particular, because these machines can pull that off. So that makes us less special. And I think AI reveals that we're more special. Our embodied existence for now is still unique. Our collective sensing and knowing that, I don't know, this indiscernible nature of who we are, that je ne sais quoi, that as the French might put it, there is something human, something about being of our type of life. And there's a whole debate, discussion, scientific and otherwise, about when AI might be considered living. If we've already crossed that, I don't think so. Will we? Most probably. But that the nature of us as living organic beings is special. And we will most likely value that uniquely in a future where our outputs and our economic productivity is not the special thing at all.
Fascinating. One of the things that you're pointing to that I myself very much appreciate is that you're kind of refusing to give us any sort of reductionistic account of what it means to be human. It's a very complex reality of what it means to be a human, right? It seems to me that we learn a lot of things by being embodied that an AI can't learn yet, right? Because I think we learn a great deal through pain, and we learn a great deal through pleasure, and various sensate experiences teach us a great deal that I don't know yet. Maybe someday, I don't know, but at the moment at least, that's something very moving about what it means to be human. Another thing that you pointed to is that we tell stories to one another, and that there's something about telling of stories that also makes us human. And it's a primary way in which we're formed. Our character is formed, our sense of what we value is formed, sense of community is formed, and so forth and so on. So I don't know, what are you seeing in terms of reductionistic ways of thinking about what it means to be human?
I'm not a fan. I guess I'm an expansionist in contradiction to being a reductionist. There's the human as performer of deeds that can be performed by others, means that we cannot rely on that as a distinguishing trait or a distinguishing and defining characteristic of what it means to be human. I do think embodiment is a big part of it. The lack of a body is not going to protect us. They will have bodies. They already do. Some of them look like cars. Some of them look like vacuums. And they will have humanoid versions, and they'll sense infrared light, and they'll have seismics, and they'll sense things we can't as well. And we will sense things that they can't. But I don't think that's going to be enough to say oh, this is what it means to be human. I think what it means to be human is always shifting. Is it to be a child of God? Is it to be a member of a lineage? Is it to be molded in clay, in the image of a higher being? Is it to be in community of others? Is it to speak this particular language in this way? Is it to know these songs and these rituals and these traditions? Is it to live and then to die? Right? Humans are a story. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Does a large language model have that kind of story? Is our finiteness and our imperfection a part of what we embrace? We're not building tools. We're creating a new population that we will live with, we will work with, we will play with. They'll be in our org charts. They'll be in our friend networks. They'll be in our family trees. Children will grow up and date them, and we'll have changed laws, as we've done before, to allow for deep partnership, that what we call marriage today, or adoption, of some kind. And all of that is going to create, for lack of a better word, a real funky future. And it's going to press on us about what do we value, about what do we want to preserve, about what we want to claim as our human role. And in the greater context, Lee, I'm also I'm in an expansive quest, as in a subset of questions about our relations. And as much as I stretch into this machine and AI conversation, I'm also humbly stretching into this more than human life, this rights of nature, this indigenous worldview conversation, this what is the intelligence of nature, and the network of trees and mycorrhizal fungi and the animal kinship that many people across time have experienced before we were severed from earth and land. And there's something really convergent about this moment where our climate crisis amongst the many is requiring of some traditional indigenous ecological knowledge and wisdom, and some insights and pattern matching and recognition of the highest levels of machine learning. And I think our human future will likely lay in a recognition, a humble recognition of our position on a spectrum of broadly defined life and a spectrum of literal light. That at the very end of the longest day, we're just light. We are vibrating at a frequency. We are explosion, Big Bang energy. And whether it is this remote control that I hold up in my hand right now, or the plants I see out my window, or the audio transcription service that you're likely going to use to help create the transcript of this based on AI, they're all energy, and we are definitely that. And we have temporary form and awareness of that form in these bodies, and we create the meaning of that for ourselves. So what meaning do we want to create? What's going to make it worthwhile? And not a nihilistic, meaningless, everything is everything and nothing is nothing, land of blah. I don't want that. I want meaning.
What does it mean to say you want meaning?
I think for me, it means that I want to feel that effort expended is worth something more than explicit financial reward. That's just not enough. Or recognition and public accolade and ego stroking. But there's a belonging to community. The desire for meaning leads there or derives from there, or maybe it's both, maybe it's a circle, and a belonging to a sense of purpose. In the story, meaning is constantly changing. I don't think we're wired to just anarchy, chaos, and total ambivalence. I think we need some orienting. We need a compass. It kind of gives us more power then to decide, all right, what does this tragedy mean? Does it mean I'm a failure? Does it mean I'm getting what I deserve? Or does it mean I'm being granted a painful opportunity to learn something so that I move differently in the future?
You're listening to No Small Endeavor, and a conversation with Baratunde Thurston, comedian, satirist, and host of the podcast Life with Machines. I love hearing from you. Tell us what you're reading, who you're paying attention to, or send us feedback about today's episode. You can reach me at lee@nosmallendeavor.com. You can get show notes for this episode in your podcast app or wherever you listen. These notes include links to resources mentioned in this episode and a full transcript. We would be delighted if you'd tell your friends about No Small Endeavor and invite them to join us on the podcast, because that helps extend the reach of the beauty, truth, and goodness we are seeking to sow in the world. Coming up, Baratunde and I discuss who holds the power in the age of AI and several groups who are working hard to democratize technology. It has been so delightful to see more and more listeners like you sign up for NSE Plus. Our growing community is made up of intelligent and thoughtful people looking for a holistic approach to human flourishing. Signing up for NSE Plus is also a way to support the show and the work we're doing, and in fact, we depend upon that kind of support. But in addition to supporting the show, you'll get exclusive access to bonus content, and the No Small Endeavor you've come to love will be completely ad-free. In fact, you won't even hear ads like this one. So go to nosmallendeavor.com and click Join NSE Plus to become a member of our community today. Join for as little as $5 a month. Again, go to nosmallendeavor.com, click on that red button that says Join NSE Plus to become a member today.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
In your How to Citizen, your homepage there, you kind of have 4 big points. To citizen is to show up and participate, to invest in relationships with others, to understand power, to be fluent in power and understand how to use it for our collective benefit, and is to value the collective, to work towards outcomes that benefit the many. So first, let me ask sort of a diagnostic/social critique kind of question. Given that you care about power and you're trying to help people understand the machinations and or the productive use of power, what do you see as the way power is at work in the rapid revolutionary development of AI in ways that might be very destructive?
We always have choice, and each of us individually does not have the same opportunity to create influence as others of us individually at any given moment. And so right now, because of consolidation of power in the executive branch away from legislative and judicial, and I think you see the courts being ignored and challenged, and with what army would they enforce, right? There has to be an agreement by these other branches to obey and to adhere, to conform. And if not, then we have a test. So into that environment, you also unleash most likely the most culturally, economically, technologically disruptive force maybe ever. And the resources defining it are highly concentrated. This technology is not driven by a government by, of, and for the people, as was the internet when it was housed in a Defense Department run by a pretty representative and constitutional democracy. AI is not run by that democracy. It is run by a literal handful of companies who have marching orders of a primary mandate is to return value to shareholders. And that's newish. So yeah, my analysis is that the tendency toward concentration of power and thus abuse is extremely high because AI is maybe not coincidentally being born at a time of concentration of political and economic power already.
Tristan Harris, formerly at Google, starts the Center for Humane Technology. And his thing is we need a narrow path, the narrow path between, on the one hand, the techno-oligarchy of nation states and corporations, which can kind of lead us to this dystopic, overbearing use of technology. And then on the other hand, we need to avoid the utter democratization that could lead to chaos. One leads to dystopia, one leads to chaos. And that we need to have some sort of path down the middle, but it's going to require a new imagination. Instead of thinking, okay, all this is inevitable, so we just got to rush out there in our capitalist pursuits and get stuff out as quickly as possible. He's encouraging us to say, no, it's not inevitable. We can step back and we can make some choices about serving some sort of common good, some sort of way of serving humanity. How do you react to what he's saying, or who are people that are raising similar sorts of questions that you're finding compelling and worth paying attention to?
What I see in opposition to my concern about dystopia, deep concentration of power, some basically massive techno-fascist authoritarian state where we hail Lord Zuckerberg and Lord Bezos and Lord Musk. It's very possible, not really what I'm for. So I do see signs of an alternative that could happen. I would quickly ping and highlight Audrey Tang and collective intelligence. I would highlight the bioregional movement, which is looking at organizing people not around literally man-made fake political lines drawn in sand, but around nature's boundaries. I would point very historically to confederacies of self-government, like the Haudenosaunee, who predate democracy on this here Turtle Island, North America land by many hundreds, if not thousands of years, of how do you make peace happen amongst distinct nations, but form something whole out of that. I would point to All Tech is Human as a community of people who are championing responsible tech. I would point to the Data and Society Research Institute, where I've been an advisor for some time, who are illuminating and highlighting a lot of what we need to be concerned about, but also how do we shape the discourse and the debate. I would highlight France and their approach, the EU more broadly, France in particular, because they do not want to be linguistically colonized with language models that are predicated on English or economically colonized by companies that are only anchored in the US or North America. And I would point to Claudia Chwalitz at an organization called DemNext, John Alexander, who I've already cited, people who are innovating in democracy and the technological practice of that social tool, people who are innovating and applying the technology in a good way, in a responsible way, and people who are binding to the earth and planet differently. I see some convergence of all that, which looks really different than we all become citizens of Amazon or Meta. And what I see in the combination of all these things is, all right, you take the idea of representative and electoral democracy, which is really stale in the US now. It's a lot of money, a lot of extremism, a lot of influencer culture infecting state and national legislatures all over the country. And you acknowledge, this is broken. The form is broken. But there's this other form, this thing called a citizens' assembly. The Greeks trusted it more than elections, it turns out. And people are conscripted into service. It's truly random and thus truly representative. It's expertly facilitated. So you're not just dependent on staff to learn stuff and hope they tell you the good bits. You have compensated for your time. That form of democratic practice is starting to explode across the US. Bowling Green is using versions of it. Bend, Oregon is using versions of it. Detroit, cities in Maine, Jackson, Mississippi. And it's cutting across these historic divides and allowing people to see each other. AI is being deployed by organizations like Cortico, but also Google and an app called Polis to help people see each other, to find the consensus and not just the division. So it's actually taking Tristan's critique of, an algorithmic overlord dividing and slicing us and marketing us and selling us off to the highest bidder and pitting us against each other. It's flipping that on its head. It has a different incentive, setting a different goal for coherence, for understanding, for peace, creating incentive around that. And all of a sudden the system behaves differently. So we can do that. We're already doing that in these little pilot programs. Then I could see that scaling. And I certainly am trying to be a relatively loud voice in saying, all right, here's the AI age. I'm team life. I'm team human in the context of broader life. How do we make this work for all of us? One last example of how this should go, not just critique of what we don't want, but highlight of what is good. Very recently, I was a part of an effort here in Palm Springs. We hosted an AI and creativity expo. I travel a lot on stage for a living, and I read 1,000 things and listen to all the podcasts. This was a community engagement effort around AI that I haven't really seen before. The school district was represented, the Chamber of Commerce was represented, small businesses, parents, and creative people, hundreds of them, fill in the convention center hall to be like, what do we want? And because of the experience with social media, where we didn't seize that opportunity, we weren't offered it ever, and most of us didn't know to seize it. So every parent's dealing with it on their own. Every school, every office, every workplace, every romantic relationship. What's going on with you on your phone? I didn't choose this, but now I'm living 6 hours a day on Instagram. So how do we not do that again? And I'm not claiming Palm Springs has figured everything out, but it's a really beautiful example. Richmond has done some similar things with AI Ready RVA is a group I learned about. And they're just taking a collective engagement approach. Let's get everybody, let's kick these tires. Let's not be afraid to be afraid, but let's also not be afraid to engage and figure out how do we make this work for us so we could actually do more democracy with these tools. We could bind ourselves to each other in ways that the current system doesn't make easy, in fact, makes hard or to near impossible.
Right. So how do you think common people contribute towards that kind of potential outcome with AI?
Yeah. Probably slowly, then increasingly, then dramatically and beautifully. You could be asking a question about economic policy. You could be asking a question about criminal justice policy. You could be asking a question about civil rights around Black people or around LGBTQ people. How does the average person join an effort to create a system that works better for the average person? And so I think we have a lot of historical analogs to support that pathway. It is not terribly unique for AI. It's a different domain, but it's the same concept. How do we exercise our power? How do we shape our worlds to ones of our own liking and to our own broad benefit? We certainly can sit back and do nothing and let existing winners accrue more spoils. That's probably not going to work out well in the long run. So I think there's, practically speaking, a way to look at every circle that we're already a part of and consider how active our choice making can be with our individual time, with our human relationships as parents and partners, and with our pets. Where is AI showing up? How are we making choices about what to use or not to use? How have we already made choices? We've made choices about the meat we put into our bodies. What about the AI systems we allow into our families and workplaces? Is it about the energy usage? Is it about the ethics and morality of the senior leadership? Is it about the cost? Is it about the complexity? And so there's like an informed choice thing that we can do. I think a powerful thing we can do is use these systems in community. I think there's a lot of foisting things on individuals that doesn't serve us as members of society. And so it's as simple as, in whatever organization you're a part of, whatever team, talk about it. I speak to a lot of companies and I have these conversations with the employees and they have these two identities. As an employee, I'm all in on AI. It's going to make us more productive and more efficient. As a person, I've got doubts. I don't understand what's happening here. I'm starting to feel this addictive tendency. My kid is using it to do all their homework and I don't have any forum to raise this. So create a forum in your homeowners association, at your kid's school, in your office. Create a little working group, a little forum to talk about it. And then wherever you have a link or relationship to formal existing political power, put it on the agenda.
Coming up is a short break, followed by our discussion on what questions we should ask in the age of AI and how to better advocate for a future we hope might come to pass.
Today's top story, the flavor merger of the century between the Peanut Butter Group and Chocolatey Corp. Joining me is a PBC executive.
Thanks for having me, Barry.
Now, how did you know the merger and the byproduct of it, Jif peanut butter and chocolate flavored spread, would be a success?
You know, it was a gut feeling, a rumbling, if you will. Besides, they're two titans of taste.
Very true. Goes great with pretzels.
And pancakes.
Apples too, I bet. Try Jif PBC today.
As a sports fan, I have to confess. Sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
One of the first steps is let's begin asking questions in our local context about how are our local communities and people who have leadership in those communities thinking about AI and technology. What then would be kind of a second level set of questions that you would think would be near the top of the list that people want to begin to get proficient in asking? So I'm thinking, for example, there's obviously lots of conversation about the way in which large language models have some sort of bias because it's trained on data, and the data represents human experience, and our human experience in our various communities is inevitably tainted by bias, often very destructive bias. And so that gets read into the system. For me, that's one of the questions I'd always want to be asking is how does this system biased towards certain given presumptions? Another one, the one that I think I would want to be asking is what kind of standard of truth is at play? Because when push comes to shove and you have dilemmas about how you're going to give account for something, you have to make some sort of judgments about what you're going to count as true. So what would be the kind of second level questions you think we should get proficient in asking?
Those are great questions. Bias, truthiness, or standard of truth. I would say explainability, transparency around use.
Yeah.
Disclosure. We are not against it, but we deserve to understand and know when AI and automated systems are being used. This was one of the key principles of the AI Bill of Rights that emerged in the Biden-Harris administration. We had Dr. Alondra Nelson on our show to talk about how that came to be. It's still a great idea, and communities can do it even if the federal government's not going to do it. So transparency, a level of explainability to understand as much as possible how these things are working, and if not, at least how they're being used. I also think it's kind of an essential question. What do we want as a community? What do we want for kids' educational outcomes? If it's the sustainability, what do we want for our energy use and efficiency? If it's job creation, what do we want? What kind of jobs do we want? What kind of median incomes do we want? We need to get better at asking those questions. And I think we're out of practice with that. We shout a lot of things out in social media and to avoid our representatives are not necessarily listening to us as much as donors in many cases. And so to get better at asking, what do we want for our communities as a first order question, then the AI questions come in. How can we use AI to help us get what we want? And then a more fun one, I think, would be, what do we have to do that we don't want to do? And we all have that in our various roles. As a business owner and operator, I have to do bookkeeping and invoicing and taxes. I don't like doing any of that. Bring on the AI. Please displace that work from me. I'm inviting you to take that job off my hands. I come willingly. And I think that there is a level of excitable consent, jubilant consent, where in an employment context, in a worker context, you don't start with the CEO and the board looking at where we can save money. You start with the unions. You start with the worker special interest groups and employee interest groups. You start with committees and divisions and departments, and you ask people, what's the hardest part of your job that you've been struggling with? I'm here to help. I've got some AI with me. What's the most meaningless part of your job that's taken up outsized time and resources? If we could approach people with that, all of a sudden the threat is now an invitation to possibility, to more participation, to more power. And we can deliver on that real promise of letting people do the meaningful work. But you cannot promise to elevate people into meaningful work and you're not even bothering to ask those people what meaningful work to them is. That's just a charade. That's a scam. And we can't tolerate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like your work, How to Citizen, is immediately being brought to bear upon questions about AI, right?
Absolutely.
You're asking questions, what kind of communities do we want to have? How can we do this together? How is power going to be at play in all that? How do we work collectively towards the benefit of the many, not just the few? get better at asking those kinds of questions and then let that better set of questions inform the way we ask follow-up questions about AI.
Yes, that's very right. It's how to citizen with AI, and those 4 pillars are a great starting point. They're not exhaustive. I think they're necessary, maybe not sufficient, but I think they're like essential layers. There's 2 other quick frameworks. So you have those questions. When I first started writing about AI long ago, a year and a half, 2 ago, I had this 3 A's. AI could be used to accelerate, to augment, to accommodate. Each of those represents a choice. What do we want to accelerate? As a family member, as a household member, as a community member, as an employee, as a citizen, as a resident, acceleration isn't good for everything. I don't want to accelerate mealtime. I like taking my time with my meals. I don't want to accelerate time with my wife. Mostly. Sometimes I want to get through this argument real fast. Come on, AI, bail me out. But let's choose. Let us not just receive higher speed from a Mark Zuckerberg type. It's great for him. It's not great for me. It's not great for us. So let's choose. Augment. Can we choose the augment versus the replace? And where? I already gave a few examples of that. Accommodate. This is huge. Where can we use AI to accommodate participation by people who have been excluded from previous versions of our systems? That goes to language skills, to learning styles and neurodiversity. That goes to all the DEI things, all the inclusion things. That goes to geography and time zone. Like, there are so many beautiful ways that AI can help us include people and their valuable contributions and perspectives that just technically was harder before. It will not solve these things. Just add AI is like saying just add power. We still have to choose how we wield it. But those 3 A's are a good rubric. The how to citizen 4 pillars are a good rubric. And then the last thing is this concept of a power inventory, because I know a lot of people feel real powerless. And you're just like, well, the billionaires have a lot of power and these corrupt politicians have a lot of power. And what is little old me going to do? We're more powerful than we think. That's a good book worth reading by Eric Liu from the Pacific Northwest and Citizen University. Every decision we make is an exercise in power. Every choice to consume or not consume, to tune in or not tune in, to tune in amongst which thing, to put this in my mouth or not, to pay attention to Baratunde right now or scroll on my phone as I listen and I've just tuned this dude out. I'm giving my power in these moments. And we set a culture in that. How we practice power in these tiny ways is kind of how we do it in the big way too. And all these leaders we don't like, or these institutions that we feel are failing, they grow out of a soil set by the culture of our small interactions at home, at school, at work, at church. And so it matters. It won't change like the next election outcome necessarily, but it sets the stage, because I think we're in something that's dying. I think a lot of empire vibes from Western civilization history embodied deeply in the American project are being radically challenged. And some of them are pulling apart at the seams. Some of these wheels are falling off the carriage. And there's gonna be a lot of pain in that. There already is. We're doing things we shouldn't be doing. People are suffering who have no need to suffer. And it is not the end of our story. And there's always something else being born, even as there's something dying. That's the circle of life. That's the thing we're a part of as humans. And if we lean into that and embrace that, it doesn't mean the pain isn't painful. I'm not saying everything's all right. It is not. But we also make choices now that set what comes. So let's make choices together that set some good to come of this, make all this pain mean something more than just suffering, mean that we're setting the stage for something to come that's even better than the thing we've been struggling through for the past couple centuries.
Been talking to Emmy-nominated host, writer, and public speaker Baratunde Thurston about his newest project, Life with Machines. Baratunde, this has been a great conversation. I'm really grateful for you and for the lovely conversation today. Thanks so much.
Lee Camp, I'm so grateful that you wanted to speak with me. I wish you well. Let's stay in touch.
Thanks very much. Here's a closing take on our conversation with Baratunde Thurston. One thing I would have loved to discuss longer, had time allowed, reductionist versus expansionist visions of what it means to be human. And we don't even have time here for me to say why I think that's so important, but I do, and I think it will be increasingly important as we sort through what it means to be human in the aeon of the proliferation of AI. I also would have loved more time to discuss the various practices of democracy, which Baratunde highlighted, the ways AI is facilitating community building and community engagement. And on this note, I find hopeful his hopefulness that the unfolding of AI does not inevitably lead us to a techno-fascist body politic driven by AI and the oligarchy that controls the levers of such techno power. But to avoid such ends requires people like you and me to be educated in the issues at hand, to make some contributions, to come to terms with the fact that the choices we are making with regard to AI already have certain moral implications and long-term significance. So, to help get you geared up, we've left links to many of the resources Baratunde highlighted in the show notes. 2 helpful practices toward a good life from this episode. First, Baratunde's encouragement to create community forums, simply to talk about it. Don't be left to the winds of AI on your own. Create a little working group, he said, a little forum to talk about it. And then, wherever you have a relationship to formal existing political power, put it on the agenda. Make it clear that this is something you care about for your community. A second helpful practice that I'll be taking away from this interview: to compile a list of questions I regularly want to be asking about AI, about bias, about standards of truth, about explainability, about transparency around use. And keep at hand a larger question like, what do we really want? What kind of community? What kind of kids' education? What kind of median incomes? And then ask, how can we employ AI to help us with all of that? That's a small, but not so small, closing take on today's episode with Baratunde Thurston. You've been listening to No Small Endeavor and our interview with Baratunde Thurston. We've been discussing his podcasts and projects How to Citizen and Life with Machines. We gratefully acknowledge the support of Lilly Endowment Incorporated, a private philanthropic foundation supporting the causes of community development, education, and religion. Our thanks to all the stellar team that makes this show possible: Christy Bragg, Jacob Lewis, Carrie Harmon, Jason Cheesley, Sophie Byard, Kate Hayes, Mary Evelyn Brown, and Audrey Griffith. Our theme song was composed by Tim Lauer. Thanks for listening, and let's keep exploring what it means to live a good life together. No Small Endeavor is a production of Tokens Media, LLC, and
Great Feeling Studio.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.